And this is why intensity is the #1 driver for muscle growth.
Once your goal is sharply but realistically defined, all that remains is carrying out your plan. In other words, you'll never know how good you might have become unless you try. So let's get with it.
The day finally arrived. We're going to understand what intensity means in the context of training and building muscle. We're trying to just be as clear as possible with everything so we can make our own conclusions. But today we're going to understand how intensity works, how we can make our workouts more intense, and also why it's the main driver for muscle growth. So if you don't know yet, we're talking about the 7 principles that kind of compose bodybuilding and building muscle. These are all based on Mike Mentzer's philosophy. The first one was identity, which just means that physiologically, we're roughly the same. So anything that relates to muscle building should be able to be applied to every single person in the same way. So if biologically speaking or physiologically speaking, we're essentially the same, the stimulus necessary to trigger muscle growth and the biochemical changes that are involved in it should be the same across every single individual. When it comes to intensity, not only do you have to account for the fact that you have to go to failure, but progressive overload is also major in keep adaptation going. Yesterday I made a post about Mike Mentzer's philosophy and some of the principles that are still used today. And one of the comments of the post was, should I try to keep increasing the reps with the same weight, or try to increase the weight and keep the same amount of reps or improve in reps too? And my current approach for progressive overload is different for upper body and lower body. A lot of factors are involved here, but the thing you should be focusing on, if everything else is correct, like form, time under tension, and control of the movement in general, you should be trying to get stronger every workout, meaning that you should increase the weight that you're lifting every workout. But being able to increase the number of reps with the same weight is also progress. It's still progressive overload. Up to a point, that's super valid. But once your volume is too high, it's just building fatigue. So if you're looking to progress, your main focus should be getting stronger every workout, meaning lifting more weights. Another point here, if intensity is the #1 driver for muscle growth, do you think you should be at the gym for a long time or a short amount of time? I think one of the best comparisons we can have is marathon runners and sprinters. What is more intense, the sprint or the marathon? And now we gotta watch out for how we understand the concept of intensity, because a lot of people think that something that's hard to execute is intense, but that's really not the case. We're gonna explore some physics a little bit, so if you didn't enjoy your physics classes in college or in high school, man, skip this part, because it's really what it entails. So what is intensity? Intensity is power divided by area. And really, what we mean by that is energy transferred per second, which is the measure of power, divided by a surface area. I think a clearer way of understanding what intensity is just how concentrated the energy output is. Picture this. You have 10,000 firecrackers, and you can explode one after another. Of course, there's a lot of energy that's released, it's pretty loud, and it's gonna last a long time. But if you really think about it, each explosion is gonna be really small. Nothing major happens really, structurally, and it wouldn't destroy a building, for example. Now, compare those 10,000 firecrackers with one single atomic bomb. Well, the difference is, all the energy in the atomic bomb is released at once, in one place. There's a massive pressure wave, extreme force concentration, and immediate structural destruction. So out of the two, which one is more intense, the atomic bomb or the 10,000 firecrackers? I would say the atomic bomb. Now moving to the context of marathon runners and sprinters. The idea is basically the same. With the marathon runners, there's a lot of energy involved for sure, but it's spread throughout a long period of time. When you have the sprinters, it is a lot of energy too, all spent in a few seconds. So in this context, doing sprints is way more intense than doing a marathon. I'm pretty sure you got the pattern, but since we're talking about bodybuilding, I gotta talk about bodybuilding training. So if you had the idea that more volume, meaning more sets and more reps, would cause a workout to be more intense, well, now you understand that that's not true. The high volume training will likely be like the firecrackers or the marathon runner. There's gonna be a lot of sets, a lot of reps, and a lot of energy, but it's spread across a long period of time, and fatigue is gonna be the main factor here. There is a lot of energy being spent, so you're spending a lot of calories, but there's not a lot of force in a short amount of time, so there's not a lot of intensity there. Now we move to heavy duty training, or low volume training in general. Like the atomic bomb or the sprinter, there's gonna be few sets, a lot of weight, and maximum force demand. So we're not spending less energy throughout time for a big total amount of energy. We're spending a lot of energy in a short period of time, so energy is concentrated into a short effort. In that way, just visualize it. If you're doing bicep curls, for example, with lighter weight, but doing 20 reps, for example, pumping the muscle, boom, boom, boom. You can even see in my face, like I'm actually imagining it, but imagine yourself doing the same. You don't see the struggle up until the point where you're kind of going to failure or you feel a burn, for example. Now imagine you add more weight, keep the strict form, and try to lift it. Like I can see it, I'm lifting hard, so the stimulus is much, much more powerful. And in order to build muscle, do you think you need a powerful stimulus or do you think you need to spend a lot of energy? Well, you need the powerful stimulus. And this is why it's super important to keep things clear here. We're saying that high intensity training is best for building muscle. A lot of the context of golden era training, the guys were already big. They already had a lot of muscle. So their main goal was to spend calories just to stay lean. That's why they wouldn't do any cardio. So they would do the 20 sets per muscle group or whatever. But they weren't really growing from it. Arnold wasn't trying to get bigger. Or Frank Zane, he wasn't trying to get bigger. None of them was looking for that. They were looking for the aesthetic physique that came from low fat and round muscles that already existed. But when you get a guy like Dorian Yates, for example, his goal, get bigger every single year without sacrificing condition. And guess what he did? Low volume training. We already know the infamous pictures, 1992 versus 1993. Do you think he would have been able to do so, doing 20 sets per body part? Well, I don't think so. Now, do you understand the physics behind it? Let's see Mike's own words. Intensity, as applied to bodybuilding, can be best defined as the percentage of momentary ability that an individual is capable of exerting. The bodybuilder must regularly make the attempt to perform those tasks that seem impossible at the moment. So, that last rep that you think maybe I can't get it, well, you should think that you can, because that's where muscular failure is, and that's the stimulus that you need to cause muscle growth. And I wasn't going to read this just because I like to make this conversational, but I absolutely love the video where Mike talks about carrying a set to failure. And guess what? It's written right here.
Carrying one set to a point of momentary muscular failure
Is the single most important factor in increasing size and strength. Cool. Now so you understand what intensity is and how it works in bodybuilding. So how can you make your workouts more intense? So to raise the intensity factor of your workout, you can do 3 things. Number 1, you can keep increasing the weight that you're lifting. Number 2, you can decrease the amount of time it takes to do any amount of work. And number 3, the most important one, by carrying a set to a point of total failure. When you think about the equation that we talked about early in the video, the first one just talks about adding more power, right? And how do you add more power? By adding more energy. And the energy is going to be just the weight. The second option is also to decrease the time factor. So number 1 and 2 are easy to see from the equation. Number 3 is what we always see Mike talking about. Failure is the number 1 driver of intensity. So for number 1, we're essentially talking about progressive overload, which I already talked about too. Basically, what I would recommend is carry a logbook. Every time I go to the gym, I revisit my last workout and I see, oh, for leg extensions, I did 4 plates for X amount of reps. Today, let's try to add a pound and see if I can keep the reps or increase. And that way, you're going to keep track of your strength levels, see if you're recovering, and making sure that you're forcing your body to adapt and get bigger. To decrease the amount of time it takes for you to work out, for example, which is number 2. Man, you just got to focus and have intent. Really. A lot of people don't understand how much time they spend at the gym because of other things that they're doing, except working out. I've been guilty of that myself because I make content, for example. So, the fact that I'm taking my phone, recording a video, see if it looks good, and then all of a sudden, oh, let me check Instagram, let me check TikTok. That's not what working out is. And for the last 2 workouts this week, I completely forgot on my phone. I just left it in my backpack and went to work out. Guess what? My workouts were taking 2.5 to 3 hours. In the same workout that I did without my phone, I finished in 1.5 hours. And mind this, my gym has 4 floors. So if I'm doing legs, everything's on the same floor. But chest machines are on one floor, back machines are in another. It's a lot of movement. And still, I managed to cut it in almost half. There's no issue if you want to go ahead and use your phone, if you want to take your time at the gym. Of course, if you're not in anyone's way. But the gym is a place to work out. That's the number 1 factor. And how much intent and how much focus you put in is completely related to the results you're going to see. Going to the gym consistently and being able to be intentional with it and be completely focused and immersed in that moment for X amount of time, whatever it is, 1 hour, imagine doing that for a whole year, 2 years, 3 years. It is going to change you. It's no secret. It is simple to understand, yet it's hard to do. And moving on to the third option to increase the intensity of your workouts. It's just training to failure. But for a lot of people, that's not really clear. What really is training to failure? Well, I'm here to clarify all that, so lucky you. Next, I'm gonna put a video of Dorian Yates doing leg extensions because blood and guts is just the best workout video there is, and the vibes are insane. But using that, I'm gonna explain what training to failure is, and I'm gonna explain why Dorian is not training to absolute failure. He's reaching only one of the levels of muscular failure. So here you see the iconic temple gym, and Dorian is about to do his set. Remember what I said, there is intention. He's fully immersed in the workout. Look at the time that he's taking to focus, and then watch the set.
Yes, come on. Squeeze it up. Come on. Squeeze it up. I said, come on. Yes. Squeeze. Let's go again. Come on. Still strong. Come on. Bring it up. Let's do one.
See when the reps start slowing down? That's when you know you're getting close to failure. Why? Your muscle fibers are not able to contract enough that you can complete the movement. So really, it's almost like they're failing, right? And here, you see Dorian reaching failure. Why? Leroy was helping him get the weight up. So, if Dorian was by himself, he probably wouldn't have been able to do so. But that was failure in only one level. When you look at the movement from a leg extension, there's the concentric part, which is lifting the weight up. There's the static part, which is the slight pause at the peak contraction. And then the last one is the eccentric part, which is the part where you're lowering the weight. Ranking these three different levels in terms of the level of strength, we have the weakest being the concentric part. So when you're lifting the weight, you're actually your weakest. The second weakest is going to be the static part. In that case, the top peak contraction. The third level is the strongest, which is lowering the weight. So if you were to assess each part individually, someone can curl up 100 pounds. They can probably hold, 125, and they can lower 150, but they wouldn't be able to bring the 150 up, and they wouldn't be able to hold the 150. So these three different levels explain a lot of what spotting is whenever you go to the gym. So if you're an experienced lifter, or you have a good workout partner, there's going to be times where you know you can't do another rep. It's physically impossible for you to do it. But then, like Leroy did with Dorian, they bring the weight up and they say hold, because you are able to hold it. You're just not able to put it up. Once you're holding it and you feel like you can't hold it anymore, you don't just drop the weight. You drop it slowly, because there's still that third level of strength, which is the strongest. So to capitalize on every single part of muscle failure, you go to failure by yourself by lifting the weight up, whatever that is. Holding the weight for as long as you can, and lowering the weight as slow as possible. What's the problem here? It's impossible to do this by yourself, unless you're using specific machines that allow you to change the resistance system, or if you have a workout partner every single time you go to the gym. Because if you're failing on the concentric part, what are you going to do? There's an option. You can do unilateral movements. So you're doing preacher curl, for example, and you're failing and you can't get it up anymore. You use your other arm, bring it up. But for compound movements, for example, try doing that at a bench press. Well, I wouldn't advise you actually. Don't do that, because I'm not responsible for any injuries here. But again, it's really hard to do that, which is why when we talk about training failure, most of the time we're just referring to the first level, which is the concentric part. The weakest, but still strong enough of a stimulus to trigger muscle growth. It's just not the strongest stimulus possible. So what are we saying here? Is the only way to build muscle to train to failure, to train to absolute failure? No, it's really not. But it is indeed the most effective way to build muscle. If you want to build the most muscle in the least amount of time, that's what you do. When you think about figures that were building awesome physiques, big, strong, shredded, with high volume, the argument isn't that it doesn't work. The argument is actually that they would look bigger by doing lower volume, or they would have reached the same potential in a shorter amount of time doing lower volume. It's not about what works or what doesn't work. It's about what works best, given that the goal is to build more muscle. So there you have it. Now you understand what intensity is in bodybuilding, and hopefully you can apply this to your workouts. If you have any questions, go ahead and just shoot me a comment, or follow me on social media. I'm much faster there. On Instagram, TikTok, I'm always willing to help. And I love this, really. And explaining, teaching, learning, it's really a big part of what I'm doing here, what I'm trying to do. Just cause a bigger positive impact, you know? So we talked about intensity, we understand how it works, and how you can make your workouts more intense. Next week, we're going to approach the third principle, which is going to be connected with the second. This series is going to build on itself, so I advise you to not miss a single chapter. Guys, thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.